everyone, welcome back to the Suburban Homesteader. Just a bit of a watermelon update. So I'm thinking of pulling out the watermelon vine now and harvesting some of the watermelons that are still on here. Look, overall, I think this is the second time we've grown watermelon. The first time it was a couple years ago, probably about 5-6 years ago when we were living in the Blue Mountains. It was kind of a fail. We tried growing the war paint variety, so it's a bigger variety. And I think the sun had scorched it, and I think like the rats had gotten to it too. So the rats were getting to like the pumpkins and the watermelon. So we actually never harvested any, and then we moved. So this is like the second time. I want to say it's successful. We definitely had some fails. And we had some wins. Like, it's the second time growing, and look, otherwise we grew it quite successfully. There's things that I need to do a bit more research on, or you might have some tips as well for growing watermelons. But I'll take you along and I'll just show you a few things that we've noticed as we were growing these watermelons. The first time we tried growing it along the ground. This time we tried maximizing our vertical space. I think the vertical space, I think growing up vertically was quite good. I think, if you wanted to try and maximize your growing space, growing the smaller varieties up the trellis would be a lot better than some of the bigger varieties. And, we use these little mesh bags to really hold the watermelon up. And I felt like they worked quite well. I just did bought them off Temu for a bit of an experiment. So I think they worked quite well in supporting the watermelon. We had 2 snap on us before we could get the bag on them. So that was a bit of a, hey, got to quickly put them on before they get too big and too heavy. But otherwise, I think overall it went quite well. Early on, it took a long time to establish. It started to take a while for it to actually notice anything. And then it just shot up from there. Initially, it was quite green and growing quite really well. We're starting to get some pumpkins on it, and then quite early on we had this pollination issue, and it was where some of the new buds or fruits that were forming would die off really quickly, and the flowers would shrivel up and die and go black. And I did a bit of research and I had a look on some of the Facebook groups, and they said it was a pollination issue. So we're trying to hit it with some potash and some sea salt and some all those kinds of things to try and give it a bit of a boost to try and help with producing more flowers, keeping them there longer, more healthy so they could pollinate. We just didn't have the time to come out here and try and hand pollinate it. The flowers are really small as well. So I don't know if anyone hand pollinates their watermelons. We definitely didn't. But otherwise, we did get quite a few watermelons off it. Now, another thing we had happen, so it was going really well, and then all of a sudden it started to develop these rusty looking spots. I'm guessing it's a rust. Obviously now it's getting to the end of the season for the watermelons, but it started off with a few spots on the watermelons, and they'll shrivel up and go brown. And then all of a sudden within the night, it went from a couple of spots on some leaves to half of the trellis. And then because of that, you just got these kind of, shriveled watermelons kind of growing. So that was quite disappointing because it was growing really lush. It was growing up the vine on both sides. I had 2, one this side and 2 this side. So I was growing them up this way and along here and down. And some of them, look, they were growing down. They were getting quite long. And then this one only had 1, so I was growing it out this way as well as up. And still, same thing, it grew pretty long enough, and the new growth seems quite, green and vibrant. But the rest of it, as you can see, it's all shriveled. So we've still got 1 big watermelon here and 1 up here that we need to harvest. So like I said, these bags did quite well. They were just cheap from Temu. I tried replicating these bags using for the pumpkins that we had, the butternuts, but the butternuts were way too small. But these worked quite well. I've seen other people use stockings or pantyhose or whatever it is. So this one's another quite a huge one that we really need to harvest. Now the problem that we have with the watermelons is, given it's the first time I've ever grown them, we just didn't know when to harvest them properly. So we had harvested a couple of them over time, and they were either underripe or overripe. It was never perfect, so the chickens actually enjoyed it more than what we did. But you know, if you have any tips, like I heard that you can knock on it, and if the underside looks like it's a bit lighter in color versus the top, you know, it should sound hollow. The color on it should lose a bit of that sheen or the shine. So I've heard a few different tips, but really it just didn't work for us. I just have no idea when to harvest them, so we actually never got to enjoy any. We'll see what this one and the one up there is like. But you know, we just lost a lot of them because we just didn't know when to pick them right. So these, again, sugar bag variety. So if you actually have grown them or any of the watermelons, and you can give us some really good tips on when to harvest, when's the best time, whether it's, you know, from when they start to form a fruit versus, and then how many days until harvest, or if you have any other tips that you can give us, because I would really love to be able to harvest them and eat them and enjoy them. So I'll definitely have a look at growing this variety again, or maybe a slightly different variety. Definitely going to keep to the smaller varieties of the watermelon, because I do want to grow them, you know, vertically. I think this had worked really well. You know, it did help with airflow and things like that, and ease of managing any other issues that might have happened with them. And, you know, it just maximizes space. So, you know, like the watermelons, pumpkins, you know, they can go crazy. So I wanted to kind of control their growth, you know. And like I said, they did go quite long, you know, went from down here, obviously across, but all the way up and over. So that's a good, what, 5-6 meters. So look, they can grow quite well. I did have to prune them a little bit too, and I don't know if that's what kind of got them. I did sterilize my my succotaurs to try and minimize any cross contaminations, but they were kind of growing out into the beds as well, and I had to maintain them by just giving them a bit of a like I do with my pumpkins. You know, you kind of tip prune, put some more energy into what's already there and growing, rather than focusing on expanding even further. So this is kind of what it looked like, actually. You know, where it would go all black and shriveled. That's what we had quite early on. So we actually did lose quite a lot of potential watermelon. See, this is, again, like it just went black. We did quite lose a lot of watermelons because of the whole pollination issue. A lot of them didn't take. A lot of them would shrivel up when they were quite young. So, you know, overall, we probably had, I don't know, I want to say about 8 or 9 watermelons, which isn't bad for a proper first attempt, you know, technically second. But again, like, we haven't been able to enjoy any because we just haven't been able to harvest them at the right age or the right spot of the growth. So please give us tips. So I'm going to harvest these ones now. I might even try and cut open when I get inside and see how they are. I dare say we're probably maybe over. Maybe that one's a bit under, I'm not sure. But it definitely needs to come out. I'm also going to be pulling out some of our old tomato plants. I'll harvest the rest of these tomatoes because I really want to get the bed prepped for when I start getting my brassicas and my garlic ready to plant. So I'm going to pull out the watermelon and harvest what's there, and we'll see what happens. But I'll definitely love some tips on how to better grow it next year. Should I choose a different variety? Should I try and grow the same variety again? What could I do differently to like maximize what we had? If anyone knows what this was, like I did try like if it was a rust, I did try like a treatment method for it, but it just spread way too quickly, so it wasn't successful. Whether I needed to hit it earlier, I don't know, but definitely loving the tips. Otherwise, let's get these watermelons out. already was growing into the tomato bed that I missed. This watermelon's huge. This is way more than 4 kilos. See if it's ripe. This one's a lot lighter. So we'll see what they're like. So there you have it. Watermelon season is done. I've harvested the 2 watermelons. We'll take them inside to see if they're ripe. But otherwise the vine is done and out. I'm probably going to have a look at putting this spent vine, maybe into the green bin. I'm not sure whether to put it in I normally put spent veggies and whatever else in the chook one or a compost bin. But because of the rust, like I know taking the vine out, probably spurted the spores everywhere. So hopefully it doesn't do too much damage. But I'm thinking about maybe putting it actually in the green bin. So yeah, otherwise the vine's out. I'd love to grow watermelons again next season. Whether or not I grow the same variety or not, we'll see. I've still got seeds. But I'd love to know your tips and tricks so I can actually enjoy our watermelon that we grow. Because I really did enjoy growing it. It was great having the shade across the archway and having the watermelons growing vertically. But yeah, onwards and upwards. Gardening's all about an experiment, seeing what works and doesn't work and trying to improve. So if you have any comments, hit me up below. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching our video and following on our watermelon journey. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to our channel, the Suburban Homesteader AUS. We also have an Instagram page or an Instagram account called the Suburban Homesteader AUS. We post a bit more daily updates and progress there. So be sure to go along and give it a follow, please. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day and thank you for watching. Moment of truth. Just going to weigh this whopper and it comes in at 7.1 kilos. So for this variety, the maximum, or well, the average is around 4 kilos. So it's probably a bit big. So I'm guessing it's going to be a little bit more overripe potentially, but we'll see. So looking good so far. It's a big watermelon to cut open. Colour looks good, but on taste test it just wasn't sweet. It was overripe and a lot of seeds, which is a disappointment.